John Van Eden, Vice President of Human Resources for Marmon Crane Services. I'm joined here by our President, Tim Benjamin, and we're here today to talk about the results from a recent employee survey that many of you filled out. And I'd like to speak on behalf of both of us that we really appreciate everyone who took the time to fill out the survey. And Tim, perhaps you can expand on your perspective on the survey and your perspective on the information we got back.
Yeah, thank you. The timing couldn't be better for me. The ability to have what you were thinking and the ability to help shape the direction we're going as I get my feet under me was just absolutely invaluable. Fantastic response rates in a number of companies. Incredibly helpful. I promise you, there was not a single thing there that was not in the strictest of confidence. There is not any possible way we knew who said what. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I personally am going to get a lot of it, and I promise you, we will make changes. It's not going to happen all at once. An organization can only take so much change at once, but we will be very intentional and very methodical to implement the things that we learned.
So I'd like to share with you the method that was used for developing the survey and also the categories that were used as well as the means of analyzing the feedback. So there were 35 questions into 10 categories which are in front of you: the clarity of direction, respectful and safe workplace, pride in company, teamwork and collaboration, recognition and reward, communication, direct manager relationship, employee empowerment, continuous improvement and innovation, and engagement index, which is a composite of 4 different categories. Each of those 35 questions were rated on a 5-point scale, between strongly disagree being 1 and strongly agree being 5. So for strongly agree and agree, those were considered favorable scores. 3 or neutral was considered neutral. And then finally, unfavorable were either disagree or strongly disagree. And to reiterate, as Tim said before, complete anonymity was maintained throughout the process. There's no individual identifiable information, no information on which individuals did or did not complete the survey. So we weren't able to say if you did or did not complete the survey, which is why we continued to communicate out broadly for survey participation even after you completed the survey. And any survey data from a group of less than 7 rolls up to the next level to further protect that anonymity. A few more words on the response. We had 974 responses this year, which was up from 698 last year. It was 42% of the hourly population responded this year versus only 28% last year, so we had a nice improvement there. We also had an improvement with our salaried employee response rate of 90% versus 79% of last year. We had 683 written comments and suggestions versus 496 last year. And nearly all groups had increases in response rate. Australia's population was significantly higher in 2020 with the inclusion of around 400 project-assigned employees that were not included in 2019. And the reason we wanted to get the participation up is the more participation we get, the better the feedback and the higher quality feedback that we receive. So to talk specifically about the results of those 10 categories, we had some really strong areas like pride in company. Our engagement index was generally quite strong, although a little bit lower than last year. And our respectful and safe workplace was also a strong result as well. Where we had some challenges, we did have some challenges around clarity of direction. So if you look at that score, any score that is 5 percentage points different from either last year or the benchmark is notable, and you can see that is notably lower. Recognition and reward is also somewhat lower than the benchmark, but generally on pace with last year. Continuous improvement, again, is significantly lower than the benchmark and slightly lower than last year. And finally, communication, which was a little bit lower than last year, is also significantly lower than the benchmark. And as you can see, that the system-generated strengths would map to those scores, as well as the system-generated opportunities. We took another step and dug in a little bit deeper on the data, and we came up with the strengths being 4 areas, which would be focus on safety, the strength of our work teams, the intent of employees to stay, and the job and work engagement. And to explain that a little bit further, there was questions about whether or not people like their jobs, whether or not the jobs were engaged, the jobs themselves were engaging, and that was a strength area as well. And then we had 4 areas of opportunity that came out of the objective scores, which were leadership and direction, innovation, use of feedback and empowerment, and then finally career opportunities. And next I'll hand it over to Tim to talk a little bit about the 683 comments that we received.
Thanks, John. The first thing I want everybody to know is that every single one of those 683 comments were read, and they were read by every company president for their respective company. So those of you that thought that you were doing it, and there were at least half a dozen that concluded with, nobody's going to read this, but I'll try. No, we read them all. In fact, I read them 3 times. The first time just to understand what it was, the second time to get basically a view of categorization, and the third time is I tried to stratify them into major topics to know what to address first. So those 683 comments came in all different varieties. Some were really well thought out and very plainly laid out with a lengthy paragraph. Some were just one words. One was you. Why you? I don't know what that means. I even Googled it. It means gentle in Japanese. I don't think that's what they meant. Some were very wry and humorously written of, we're a paperwork company with a crane problem. You know, okay, that was amusing and I got your point. But what I want you to know is that every single one of those lines was read multiple times. So again, your feedback was invaluable and we appreciate it. So once we're done stratifying it, what do we learn? So the first item was communication. What's that mean? Not entirely sure, and that's part of the problems of everything being anonymous is we can't go back to you guys that put that down and say, what do you mean by that? We can't engage in a conversation to fix it. We just have to kind of guess. One of our educated guesses is that this became more of a problem because of the COVID situation. Historically, and I'll give credit to Joe Bob Joyce from Joyce Crane, he said we've always had an open door policy, but now with a system of splitting the office in half so you don't shut down the whole office at once, you go down behind an open door and there's nobody there. So it makes conversation that much harder when people aren't there to answer the questions. Fair point. Are there other things we do that are a little complicated, to say it nicely? Yeah, probably. So we'll keep working on that one. Respect and leadership was next. Part of that, I think, is what we saw with the results of this survey isn't going to do any good. Nobody's going to listen to the survey. I think that flowed out with your comments, too. People aren't listening to what we're trying to tell you. Okay, you have our attention. We understand that, and we'll try and be much more intentional about that. Next up is rewards and recognition. You guys aren't asking for the moon generally, so a lot of these things are easily doable. And gosh, I hope by the time this survey comes out, you will have already seen the impact of what we're trying to do. So if there's anything I think can be done quickly where you can see a tangible result from this, I think it's going to be rewards and recognition. Training and job enhancement, and what I got from it is, don't just train me for the job I've got, help train me for the job I want. And that's certainly doable. It's not an unfair request. While we're dealing with underutilized cranes and trying to hang on financially. I use that as a term of speech. We're doing fine, of course. We're not going bankrupt, but we're not making a ton of money either. So as we tried to balance that, we might have overbalanced towards not doing some of the things we should have, like additional training. Maintenance improvement, yep, got that. And technology and simplification. Yes, there are lots of room for improvement with both of those. So again, your comments were valuable, they were necessary, and they corresponded perfectly to the results of the survey itself. So thanks for doing it.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So for next steps, the first step, of course, is to share the information which we're doing today. Most of the business units will want to share their business unit results, and they'll be doing that over the next several weeks to be able to get out to the business groups and to be able to get the information out. The point in doing that, and the purpose in doing that, will be to continue the open discussion as to what priorities we should have, what priorities we should work on, and to work together to develop specific priorities for improvement. And what are those specific actions that need to be taken? And as Tim said, there are likely going to be some quick hitters. There are likely going to be some things that will take a longer period of time, possibly some investment, to be able to work through and to resolve in a way that makes sense. And commit that the next town hall that we have will give an update as to the priorities that were developed and the actions that have been either taken or planned by that time.